The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Pastor Mike, good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line, Manx Radio. We're open line today through till 1, so whatever's on your mind. Friday we were live in the sunshine at Knockalo for the Royal Manx Agricultural Show. Andy Bass was there, Finlay MacLeod from the Creamery, Andy from Conister Bank, of course, Rebecca Mear, the new boss of Isle of Man Meats, Claire Barber, MHK, the DEFRA Minister, Bill Dale from Beach Buddies, Ian Birdsall from the AB Project, and Ian Parsons from the Manx NFU. Raised lots and lots of topics about what was going on in agriculture, but also training of young people on the Isle of Man. If you've got anything to follow up from that, there's loads to talk about today, including what's going on at Cummal Mooar. But first of all, what's going on Douglas Promenade? Elizabeth.
Yes, I have a friend over on holiday, and we walked to the prom yesterday. I was going to take a photograph of her by the Bee Gees, but they're not there anymore. Where have they gone?
Have they gone again? Because they took them away a while back because they needed a reinforced plinth because it was swaying.
Well, there's no sign of them down there yesterday.
I hope nobody.
On walkabouts.
And all those Americans coming over today on the ship.
I know.
And we're without the Bee Gees.
And we've just been to the museum, and there were some Americans in there, so there was looking around the museum.
Well, there's thousands on this.
Nice.
2,000 American passengers on. It's the biggest cruise liner that's ever been to the Isle of Man.
Good Lord.
And it's peeing with rain.
It always rains when a cruise ship comes in. Have you noticed that?
It's their fault.
It always rains when they come in. Well, anyway, the Bee Gees is gone. I mean, they're never there very long. Why would you have took them away again?
Well, they were taken when they first came out. They were so popular. I don't know whether people are hanging off them or jumping on them or what it is, but apparently the base wasn't strong enough, so they took it away and reinforced their bottom, and so presumably that may have happened again. But let's hope they're back in time for MGP.
I know a lot of people that could do a bit of reinforcements on the bottom.
Well, there we are. That's another matter. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Okay, darling. Thank you.
Good to hear from you. So where have the Bee Gees gone? Does anybody know? They've not been nicked or anything. Nobody's taken them away. Please, bring the Bee Gees back. We need them for MGP. Think of all those selfies. Julian's on now. Hi, Julian.
Hi, Andy. It's interesting. The arson story at Africa House reminds me of a story last year where 3 criminals got convicted of trying to set 6 wildfires in Maui, which is interesting.
Well, they're saying that a lot of the wildfires, particularly in Spain, a lot of copycats. So, I mean, I'm not saying everyone is, but there is a certain amount of malice or forethought and people actually setting wildfires running.
Yeah, I mean, the fire chief on Rhodes and the mayor in northern Corfu both also said that it was arson. So it seems to be quite a lot of it around at the moment.
Yes, I'd heard that story about Rhodes, and you just wonder what the mentality is of people who think that's what you're going to do in the hot, dry summer, set fire to some trees.
Yeah, well, hot and dry July in Greece. What a surprise. Yeah, a couple of little subjects. Just quickly, if anyone's interested in the potential development of wind farms on the Isle of Man, I'd recommend a free documentary online called Headwind 21, easily found on YouTube with that search. And, Headwind 21 is definitely worth a watch, in my humble opinion.
Okay, and give us a brief executive summary, if you would.
A financial insider had his eyes opened as to what was going on, goes into the Swedish wilderness and then gets a bit of a shock as to what's actually going on. So you've sort of got somebody who was actually within the financial realms of how money transacts between all the companies and the wind farms. So it's very, very compelling film to watch. It's really, really interesting.
Okay.
Seaweed, first off. As it's been mentioned on the programme before, seaweed is an excellent fertiliser with benefits that you don't find with the synthetics. For example, improving plant tolerance to drought, which is handy at the moment, cold and salinity, and you get better chlorophyll production, bigger roots, improved resistance to pests and disease, and it conditions the soil with its micronutrients and vitamins. But however, we're told we can't use seaweed as it could potentially contain microplastics. But this doesn't stop the company called Ocean Knowledge in northwestern Ireland from exporting large amounts of seaweed fertiliser around the world. Now, speaking of microplastics, this brings me to my final point, which is a recent study from the University of Strathclyde. And that study is called Leading Edge Erosion and Pollution from Wind Turbine Blades. Now, usefully, the researchers were studying wind turbines with an output of around 4 megawatts, which is the same size as the ones that are proposed for the Isle of Man. And what they found was, especially in salty marine environments where you have salt crystals in the atmosphere, each turbine sheds around 87 kilos of microplastics every year. So an imperial measurement, that's about 200 pounds, or enough to fill the equivalent of 174 bags of sugar with microplastics each year, each turbine. So if you have 5 of those turbines up, you therefore have around 1,000 pounds in weight of microplastics, which would fill the equivalent of around 900 bags of sugar every year. Now, this erosion necessitates an expensive repair to the blades every 5 years, which requires them to reprofile and recoat the blades. And another problem with this, the protective coatings contain 33% bisphenol A, which is a toxic carcinogen. And the WHO set a health limit of 1/1,000,000th of 1 gram per litre of water. And what occurs to me is, the source of the Colby River runs west and next to the Erie Stane plantation, and likewise the Solby River runs right through Druidale. Now, you've also got several farms. I think there's around 10 farms around the Erie Stane area, especially to the east and the southeast, and several farms at Druidale. So I'm just wondering, has consideration been given to potentially invisible toxic microplastics spraying down from these 500-foot turbines onto the soil and water courses?
Well, and also in the north of the Isle of Man, we've got the island's biggest reservoir.
Yeah. So if you think they're 500 foot high and you've got a reasonably high wind, and you've got what you might say, imagine a big fan with water running through it effectively, the spray that's coming out, you're looking at something that is a Class A toxin and carcinogen. So you've got to wonder, what's the advert that you have on the radio at the moment? Every drop is precious of our Manx water. So, it's something that maybe hasn't really been looked at.
What do you think are the chances, Julian, out of 10, or say a percentage? What's the percentage chance of us getting onshore wind farms in the north or the south, you think?
Well, there's an awful lot of people who are now starting to realise, for example, as we've said before, with Walney, the big wind farm we see across towards the UK, in the end, the posted information that they give is, if it was a power station, you'd be switching it off 6 days a week, because in the end, the amount of energy that they post in their information is 1/7 of what an equivalent power station would be. So on an island where you've got hills, I think Michelle Hayward mentioned that there would be a tunnel effect. Well, tunnel effects, you cause all sorts of problems with wind turbines, because if they are going to work, they need to have nice clear air, and you don't want massive great gusts either forcing it to cut out because the power's too great, or cutting off. So it's a very inefficient, intermittent form of energy. And of course, as we say, there's no mention of how we're going to get base load. Although I did notice in the ARUP report that was written specifically for the Isle of Man, and that is before, I think it was 2018, prices, and imagine how much the ferry terminal's gone up now. The cheapest option was 585 million to connect us up to the UK for what we'd need before electric vehicles and heat pumps. up to an optional scenario 4, which was 980 million. So if the ferry terminal has gone up as much as it has in the last year or two, how much is somewhere between 585 million and 900 odd million? How much is that going to increase realistically to shackle us to the UK, and then we have to pay whatever prices they charge? And if they have blackouts like they threatened last year, we may be the first ones to get cut off if they're trying to keep their grid up.
Okay. All right, Julian, good to hear from you. Thanks for calling today.
Thanks, Andy. Cheers.
16 minutes past 12. Maureen, you've got some good news for us.
Yes, I've just been on the promenade and they're still there. The Bee Gees are still there. I think she must have had the wrong place.
Oh, right. Well, they're still opposite Regent Street. They're still by
yes,
by that enormous hole of a car park that's there. Oh, well, that's
right,
good news.
yeah.
I'm glad they're there. The Americans will be very happy about that, Maureen.
Okay.
Thanks for calling today.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
All right, 17 minutes past 12. The good news is they found Robin, Barry and Morris, although were they ever away? Elizabeth, where were you looking? I'm hoping to raise awareness for those who may not know that Cushag or ragwort is a weed and it does create a cumulative toxin. Yes, it is best not to eat ragwort or Cushag. It can do lots of harm to horses and cows as well. So just watch out for that, Cushag and ragwort. So do watch out for them. Don't eat it, whatever you do. Make sure you got some big gloves on. The statue is nearer the sea terminal. Well, it's at the end of Regent Street, isn't it? It's as though they're heading down to walk towards the old Drumgold Street. Maybe they're off to Foxton Lane. Bee Gees were there yesterday, says Ross. Not raining in Peel, by the way. Our Peel's getting away, so if all the Americans want to go to Peel, it's very, very dry, and the Bee Gees are still there, surrounded by tourists, says Malcolm. I walked past them an hour ago. They were there yesterday, people taking photos when I crossed the road. Elizabeth, where are you looking? Remember the three main statues. George Formby. Where's Norman Wisdom these days, by the way? Is he still there? Were the Bee Gees in the repair shop with the flumes, says George. Well, the flumes, I think, are pristine now. The Bee Gees are back, local. Lots of people taking photos this morning, says Mary. Good afternoon. Let's have a look here. Have the Manx government ever thought of buying the Bibby Stockholm barge from the UK? I don't think you can buy it. You rent it, don't you, from Bibby? Then restoring the Queen Spear and mooring it at the end as a replacement for Cummal Mooar. I don't think that would stand up, to be quite honest. Maybe the corporation could donate the Bee Gees statue as a hat and coat stand for the residents. Perhaps, Fran, 762, you never know. A note in from, let's have a look here. This is from a message. I apologise. Sometimes we get messages that are split up by the technology. I've got a friend who's from Greece and now lives in Cyprus. He was telling me that the wildfires are being started deliberately. Perhaps they're being started deliberately by organised crime, by gangster types who want to cause devastation. He left his village outside of Athens and he says it's overrun by illegal immigrants. Well, this is Pete's words on 931, so we don't have a way of verifying this, but it'd be nice if you got some verification, Pete. The UK will be no different in years to come. Well, luckily we're not part of the UK. Helen said, Andy, I saw in last week's paper the proposed development for Braddan has been given a tentative green light approval by the planning department. This news appears to be hidden, hardly reported. Surely it can't be a done deal. And why is David Ashford the only MHK who has objected the decision in the 1990s to alter the land from agricultural to residential? It was not, to my knowledge, made public at the time. Who knows what's actually happening and how can it be prevented, says Helen. It's the wrong place for 300 houses. Helen, I'm sure that place, that zone, that was zoned as part of the Eastern Plan for houses, and the plan was notionally agreed a couple of years ago, I think, for that enormous estate, although there was some debate on what was going to happen there. Was there going to be a school there or some sort of community facility? It's not a done deal as such. But in principle, I think it's there. It's part of the Eastern Development, and the extra 15,000 people who are coming in have to live somewhere. I just wonder what your thoughts are. I'd like to praise the Royal Show's organisers for putting a tent by the main ring clearly marked for disabled and wheelchairs. Fantastic. There were 4 of us in the tent, but I wasn't happy about the 13 able-bodied people who blocked out my and other people's views, says Eric. We're deluded, says text 068, if we think wind turbines are environmentally friendly. The carbon footprint of their manufacture, installation and maintenance outweighs the good that they do. Well, we'll find out later on this week, because these two were on before earlier on this year, and it got a great reaction and lots of comment came in, because we have a businessman who's in the business of net zero and a politician who advocates net zero. We got John Curtis, the guy behind the company's called Net Zero Matrix, and Andrew Langan Newton is the leader of the Isle of Man Green parties. They were on before debating net zero, so net zero 2 is this coming Thursday. And John Curtis in the past has been fairly critical of the Manx government's efforts to get to net zero. Andrew Langan Newton comes at it from the Green Party side of it. So this coming Thursday, interesting. If you've got some thoughts, then I'm sure they'd love to hear them. John Curtis and Andrew Langan Newton will be on this coming Thursday the 17th. And a week on Thursday, interestingly, former Chief Minister Tony Brown will be on. Oh, it's next Tuesday, I beg your pardon. So this Thursday, John Curtis and Andrew Langan Newton. Next Tuesday, former Chief Minister and the King of Castletown at one time, and he's still very popular there, Tony Brown, former MHK, former Commissioner, and of course former Chief Minister. Are the Bee Gees looking for the horse tram terminal, says John. Perhaps that's what they are. Maybe we could devise a Bee Gees song with AI looking for the horse trams. The missing horse trams of Loch Promenade. The National Grid statistics say wind power provided 26.8% of the UK power in 2022. 26.8%. Is that one day in 4, says Peter. And Graham dropped a note in just to say further to what Julian had to say. Why do our civil servants and politicians never mention geothermal? Well, we'll certainly bring that up on Thursday, Graham, to John Curtis and Andrew Langan Newton, just to see what they think of geothermal. We have the same geological position here that they do in Cornwall, where the Eden Project uses it through the United Downs well. Wind and solar energy farms are absolutely the wrong way to go, says Graham, who's a geologist and a geophysicist. Technically, economically, visually, they're just not the way. Onshore, they create no-go areas, intolerable noise, vibration, and they would ruin the island, both for the population and for visitors. Offshore, they're no-go areas and for fishing. And bearing in mind, we've just opened up to herring, what would also happen to our scallop industry if we had offshore wind farms? They also, says Graham, devastate the bird population both on and offshore. And remember, the Calf of Man is a world-renowned bird sanctuary. We're very well known as a stop-off point for migrating birds. So is that something that and some of our birds are protected species. Graham says geothermal is clean, it's green, doesn't produce CO2, it's unobtrusive, it's scalable, it's available 24/7, 365 with a lifetime in the 50s, if not hundreds of years. Geothermal, by the way, is where you drill down a hole miles into the Earth's core, which is hot, let's face it, and you pump down water, it comes back as steam, and it runs a turbine. Once you start, it goes and goes and goes. It's been tried many places around the world. It's not the most popular, the most used form of technology, but it is one of those technologies that's on the up. And as we're all looking for a net zero future, perhaps geothermal is the way to go. As yet, the government never, ever, ever seems to want to talk about it, never seems to sanction it, never seems to even countenance it may be a way forward. Of course, we also have naysayers where geothermal is concerned. There are some geologists who say we don't have the rock formation that would support it. But as lay people, you and I, we're not geologists, we're not geophysicists, we don't know. But do you think it's worth a shot?
Everything is Delilicious at the newly opened Woodburn Deli on Dalton Street in Douglas, just around the corner from the terrace. Whether you want to treat yourself to something tasty, from meats, cheeses and charcuterie, to pies, bakery products and coffee, or perhaps you're looking for a lovely gift, then choose Woodburn Deli for a wide range of hand-selected products you won't find anywhere else, including chocolates, drinks and hampers. Woodburn Deli, fine foods and gifts, open 7 days a week.
When you need a fitting memorial or headstone for a loved one, contact Manx Memorials in Peel. This long-standing family-run Manx company offer a wide range of granite and marble headstones and memorials, along with an island-wide inscription and renovation service. Manx Memorials skilled professionals will take the time to help you choose a suitable memorial, and we're proud to say we'll beat other local quotes. Call 843 861 or email matthew@manxmemorials.co.uk.
Q Plus is much more than a plumbing and heating trade counter. Come and explore the largest bathroom showroom on the island, where we're always updating our displays and stocking the latest bathroom designs and trends to make sure we have just what you're looking for. Visit Q Plus on Snugborough Trading Estate or find us on Facebook to see some fabulous bathroom inspiration. Qplus.co.il. Get ready for another winning weekend on Manx Radio.
And this weekend, you could win a 24-month Smart Unlimited tariff worth over £1,000 from Manx Telecom.
Visit manxradio.com and answer the competition question for your chance to win. You can enter as many times as you like.
Then make sure you're listening to Manx Radio Breakfast on Monday morning, when we'll be announcing the winner.
Make this your winning weekend with your nation station, Manx Radio.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Fast my 28 minutes past 12 on Manx Radio. We're surrounded by water as the government looked at hydrogen production, green energy and new jobs, says G. Do you know a lot about that, G? Drop me a note, tell me all about it, and we'll see if it fits into our particular situation. I think the North and the West Area Plan had to be published by the end of July 2023, otherwise it's defunct, says Ted on 945. Which countries are going to store useless massive blades and at what cost, says Liz? Well, it's worth saying, Liz, wind turbines are absolutely everywhere. I mean, absolutely everywhere. The fact that we don't have them on the Isle of Man, we can see them. You can see hundreds of the darn things off the north coast of Wales. You can see them, the Walney plant in Morecambe Bay. There are 100 of these things whizzing round all the time. You can go to various websites and apps that will tell you what the UK's wind power situation is. And obviously, the counter is that when it's flat calm, absolutely nothing's happened, and this is where this talk about baseload comes in, and the fact that you have to have something that will satisfy, the normal drain of you and me switching on the microwave and the kettle and the telly and the computer and the charger for the electric vehicle. You should talk more about geothermal. We will try. And also, I have to tell you, I think I mentioned it last week, we've got an expert, somebody who knows all about who knows about wave and tidal power, who's going to be on. And it's often mentioned that we should be having tidal power and wave power on the Isle of Man because of the enormous tidal reach in various places around the Isle of Man. And again, we as lay people don't know anything about it. We hear about it and we hear people pushing it, but is it useful for us? We don't want to be strapped to something. We don't want to be sent off on a fool's errand and strapped to something that's going to cost us tens, perhaps hundreds of millions of pounds and doesn't work. Because the lights are going to need to burn. We're going to need to come home at night on an October evening and make sure that our electric heating works. Why can't the Isle of Man simply connect into and receive electricity from the vast wind power systems that sit just outside our territorial waters, says BE on 5-2E. Why do we always have to push the Isle of Man and the MUA towards self-generation when adjacent jurisdictions can deliver electricity much more efficiently given their economies of scale? BE says we don't need to spend more money and build more wind farms, just a few turbines already in the Irish sea farms will provide all the electricity that we need. And again, sounds fine in principle, sounds terrific common sense. Why should we bother making it ourselves? Because it'll probably be more expensive. We can just get it from somebody else. The only problem is the only way of getting electricity from everybody else is that 65-mile AC cable that comes from Bispham in Blackpool. That's the only way we get electricity from across. And that is approaching 25 odd years old when the Jules Verne put it in. We are due to be having another one. Everybody talks about having another cable. However, first of all, securing the contractors to drop the cable into the seabed, purchasing 65 miles of cable, bearing in mind also with the electricity, there's also fibre optic in there that helps our industries, our gaming industries and financial industries. So it's there, but you can't just, it's not like going to B&Q and getting an extension cable. These things cost millions of pounds and they're not available off the shelf, let alone if we do purchase a new interconnector, pay somebody to put it into the seabed, connect it at both ends. We have to have somebody in the UK who is willing to supply the electricity to us at a certain price. Gets complicated. Howard's on now. Hi, Howard.
Hello, Andy. No, it's just something that crossed my mind a couple of weeks ago, actually. The mad rush by our government to fit smart meters. Now, they're also following up behind, about 2 steps behind, of putting in what you would term as unreliable source of electricity. Wind farms, solar energy and everything. Now, we get a day like today and the solar energy is going to be trickling through. We get a day, which is not very often, but a day without wind, but we get more with strong wind, which will restrict the use of wind farms. But the smart meters are a means of controlling how people use their electricity as well. And is this a follow-up? Because Dr. Allenson was pushing hard for the smart meters, and they have 18 to 20 million pound invested in it, supposedly. But is that a way of controlling how people can use the electricity, particularly if the supply goes down because of a poorly thought out manufacturing manufacturing system with the wind farms and the solar system?
Oh, I see. And so the smart meter actually cuts both ways. They can figure out what we're doing.
Yes, yeah, but it also has a means of cutting off your electricity. Or reducing it, like they had the 4-day week when they had the power cuts in Britain. And they can cut you down to, you can have electricity on a certain time of day and you can't have it on for another hour or so. And they can move it around the island. So Ramsey was out at 6 o'clock, Douglas was out at 7. Now, what's that going to do for the business sector on the island if they can't guarantee a supply of electricity power?
Well, I thought we'd moved on from having power cuts. I certainly remember the Sunday afternoon Paul Rose power cuts when it used to take 6 hours to do a beef joint on a Sunday afternoon. But you'd have thought nowadays people wouldn't put up with power cuts.
Well, if they don't have an option, such as the smart meters that are compulsory fitting, there's no such thing as it is in the UK. You can say you don't want one. But on the island here, you're not going to be allowed to do that. You're going to have one whether you like it or not. And that will give total control over the power consumption tied in with the power production.
But Howard, no politician would ever advocate that. They'd never get voted in.
Well, it's already going through, isn't it? The smart meters are being fitted already, and you were told that you will have one. So that is a form of dictatorship, but they still can't make their minds up as to how much or how they're going to generate electricity. And to cover their ears like the three wise monkeys, hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil, when geothermal power supply is advocated, they're just hiding in the corner and they don't want to listen. Probably because they don't understand it. And what they don't understand, they go and hide from. But if they had somebody on that was actually able to speak common sense and speak to some of the politicians, perhaps we might get a few change of thought on this. Because how are they going to build all the roads up on the top of the mountains and the hills and whatnot, and to put the wind farms up? Because those things, they don't just go up back lanes and round corners. And the ridiculous suggestion of putting a landing port in Castletown with the smallest streets you could possibly get to bring these huge, and they will be, wind turbines over. That's about the mentality of the government that we have at the present day.
You would have thought somebody's thought that through. You would have thought that there is a plan for that, though.
Well, perhaps there is, but it'll be a ridiculous plan, and it'll be something like the promenade, but it'll go on forever. These things they're supposed to be put up for 2026. They can't even finish the lights on the promenade for that. So how on earth are they going to put wind farms up in, 3 years? That's, they're not going to bother because half of them won't be elected again. So they'll just sit back quietly and pick their pension up and, live the life of luxury.
All right.
But
okay.
Why don't they just seriously think about geothermal energy? It keeps getting kicked into the long grass. That's all there is to it.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Howard.
Take care. Bye
all right,
now.
22 minutes before 1 on Manx Radio. Matty dropped a note. Matty on 499. Wildfires aren't started by climate change, but hotter, drier conditions makes fire burn more ferociously and harder to put out. So, again, something we're going to bring up with Andrew Langan-Newton, the leader of the Green Party, the Manx Green Party, this coming Thursday, and also John Curtis from Net Zero. I used geothermal for years when I lived in Norway, says Chris in Colby. Absolutely fantastic. Never went down because of no wind or sun or whatever. Whereabouts in Norway was that, Chris? Be nice to see that. Any news about the MGP? Do they have enough marshals to run on Sunday, says MAH. We'll find out for you this coming Sunday. It's come round very quickly, hasn't it? If the political will was there on the Isle of Man, we could get 100% of electricity requirements from a mix of renewables over the next 10 to 15 years. Text to 653. Even taking the green side of things out of decisions, it still makes sense to do this. Give us energy security and the ability to set our own prices. The science is there. Why don't we just lease our seabeds and use the funds to become self-sufficient? You got any thoughts on the matter? Text, email, call and WhatsApp. The ongoing costs are where we will be turned over, says Pammy for the 1 millionth time. Has nobody figured it out yet? The horse tram money was all spent on the fancy stuff outside the Sefton Hotel. It's common knowledge, says Fred. Send me a link to that common knowledge, would you, Fred? That you keep telling me that on 807. The horse tram money, I think, was reallocated, wasn't it? That's the way I think Charles Gard said when he was on Mannin Line a while back, that the money for the horse tram, to take it from where it is now at Castlemona Avenue by the Central to the sea terminal, it was reallocated. All the best to you. Geothermal energy, by the way, doesn't consume water. It is recirculated in a closed system with only minimal loss for maintenance. You have to obviously pump prime it, but minimal loss, says Graham. Thank you, Graham. Good to hear from you. And a message in that simply says, if geothermal was cost effective, don't we think the UK and other countries will be drilling like mad? A nuclear power station takes 5 years upwards to build at a huge cost. So if geothermal is cheap and easy, why isn't everyone else doing it? Says Dave. I got a message in, and this is from Avril, who just said, the situation at Cummal Mooar really bothers me. I've got an aged relative in Cummal Mooar, and the fact that we can't get a straight answer from people really worries me. Well, the Ramsey MHK, one of the Ramsey MHKs, Dr. Allinson, says he's met with the DHSC and Manx Care to get firm answers about what is going to happen to Cummal Mooar residential home. Dr. Allinson says it's unhelpful for those affected that there is a huge amount of uncertainty regarding the potential closure, and communications from Manx Care have created upset. The Treasury Minister has also met with the commissioners last week to discuss the care home. Our local democracy, Emma Draper, has been talking to Dr. Allinson.
We're working quite closely with the commissioners. Laurie Hooper and I, as the town's MHKs, have also met with the staff affected by this decision, and we're doing everything in our powers at the moment to clarify the situation and make sure that both the residents of Cummal Mooar but also the staff are fully supported and are actually get some firm answers as to the future of the facility and the future of a replacement facility in the town.
As a Ramsey MHK, how much communication and contact have you had about this issue from residents?
Obviously, because the residents are often older, I haven't had direct conversations with them at the moment. But when we have clarified the situation, Laurie Hooper and I are going to meet with them and explain the situation, because this uncertainty has led to a large amount of upset and concern with them and also with their families. I have actually been contacted by a number of members of staff on their behalf who have expressed the seriousness of this situation. And Laurie Hooper and I are doing everything in our powers at the moment to clarify the situation and actually resolve some of this uncertainty and have a clear plan for them in the future in terms of where they live and their ongoing support for the staff as well, who do an excellent job at Cummal Mooar.
Another commissioner has claimed that Manx Care got their wires crossed regarding the announcement it made. Do you understand that to be the case, that Manx Care has made a mistake about the closure? And if you do believe that, what are you doing to help correct that?
I think it's unhelpful that there's a huge amount of uncertainty, which has bred an awful amount of worry and upset amongst the residents of Cummal Mooar, and I'm very, very sorry for that. I've already spoken to the CEO of Manx Care and pointed out that some of the communications have created an awful lot of upset, and so we're working with Manx Care and with the Department of Health and Social Care and Treasury to actually try to clarify the situation and get a clear roadmap in terms of how we go forward for the benefit, particularly of the residents, but also the staff.
When could a roadmap or a plan even be expected?
There are currently meetings planned over the next couple of weeks to talk both to Manx Care, but also look again at the plans for the replacement of Cummal Mooar, which have now been approved by planning, to absolutely ensure that this is the right facility for the town, meets the needs of current residents and residents in the future.
What do you understand to be the future of Cummal Mooar?
The present Cummal Mooar facility isn't suitable in the long term. They do a fantastic job there to care for people, but there are some issues there in terms of shared bathrooms and also disabled access. What we need to do is plan for a replacement of Cummal Mooar that can meet the needs of people in the north in the long term and is far more suitable for those people, particularly with disabilities.
What do you think about it? What do you think about what Dr. Allinson had to say in the future of Cummal Mooar? He was talking to our local democracy reporter, Emma Draper. Emma's in charge of all our, basically talking to all the commissioners and looking at local politics on the Isle of Man. You may also see Emma's material printed in the newspapers. You'll hear it on other radio stations. We offer that material free of charge to other media outlets on the Isle of Man, purely with the goal of improving what our listeners and the newspaper's readers know about local democracy. So there was Emma talking to Dr. Allinson about what will happen. Uncertainty, yes, certainly uncertainty. So is the new one going to be built before Cummal Mooar is knocked down? Where's it going to be built? Will it be next door, as Wolf Young, one of the commissioners, said last week? Any thoughts on the matter? Oh, and also a note I just wanted to say the strip of ground on the promenade that hasn't been mown is very attractive. Last week, a few people were saying that strip of grass, which is where the horse tram should be going, is a bit of a mess. Well, it's certainly overgrown, put it that way, but Phil said that area that hasn't been mown is very attractive to insects. I'm a beekeeper, and the bees love to see wildflowers, particularly the numerous white clover that's growing in the area. Why do a lot of people like to see grass wastelands, as I call them? So this is the reason, because they're good for insects. With the decline of insects in general, we should be doing all we can to encourage wild forage for them to eat, and we shouldn't be using sprays or weed killers. Save the bees, save the insects, or we are doomed. Remember, they pollinate our food. Well, that is one thing in an uncertain world, Phil, and I thank you for that comment. That's one thing that is certain. If we have no bees, we are gone. Within a few years, human beings would be gone without the bees, because, as Phil said, they pollinate everything.
We are ready to go at B&B Furniture with a wide range of managers' specials throughout the store. If it says I'm ready to go, then it is ready to go. Priced in-store for immediate delivery and no long wait for stock to arrive onto the island. Get the furniture you're longing for with no wait, no deposit required and 0% finance available when you get ready to go at B&B Furniture. It's all here under one roof at the B&B Furniture 3-storey showroom in Snugborough.
B&B Furniture.
You get more than you think, but all that you need when you
shop local with EVF.
Because your local EVF filling station isn't just a place for fuel, it's where you can get delicious food to go. Chilled drinks, wines and beers, barbecue and summer essentials, from ice creams to surfboards, plus a great range of local products. Ellen Van in Fuels. Fill up, fuel up, and get all you need to go. Open till late.
Shop local with EVF.
It's a tough time for businesses. Not sure what to do to turn things around? Let Nicola Bowker & Co. guide you through. We've helped hundreds of businesses to success. Accountants and tax advisors to businesses on the Isle of Man.
This Tuesday at 6 o'clock here on Manx Radio, join Kiri Kermode and myself, Simon Clark, for a look back at the Royal Manx Agricultural Society show.
We caught up with the winners, the judge and some of the people in attendance.
That's all in Countryside. This Tuesday evening here on Manx Radio at 6 o'clock, brought to you by NFU Mutual. And you can subscribe or download the podcast for free at manxradio.com.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
12 minutes to 1. Frank's with us now. Hi, Frank.
Hi, Andy. How are you doing, boy?
Good,
all
thanks.
Right?
What's the weather like on the coast?
Well, it's not brilliant. I'm in Ramsey at the moment. It's very dull here, but it's not raining apart from a few spits. But it's not as nice as it was yesterday.
Okay, what's on your mind?
Right, I want to agree, first of all, with Bill just on about the insects. He's perfectly true what he's saying, and that's why I've turned half of my land into a wild meadow, and I've I've sown hundreds of thousands of wild flower seeds to help nature and to help the wildlife, and also the river that runs through my property, which the government helped initially to create a sort of a pond for the wildlife, ducks and herons and things like that to come down. But because it was not finished correctly and the man that did it didn't listen and he did the thing wrong, therefore it's now all overgrown and the government won't do anything about it. They just told me they're not interested anymore.
So what are you doing? Are you having to cut it back yourself?
I'm sorry, I can't, because as you know, I can't walk. I'm disabled. And that's really what I want to talk about. The minister goes on, the chief minister, about disabled. They don't care about the disabled people in the Isle of Man. They treat us terrible. It's like I've spoken to you before about the parking in Ramsey. All the disabled places in Ramsey, which are in the wrong place. The busiest part of Ramsey is up at the top where Costa is and Felton's and the bank. That's the busiest part of town. And there are no disability parking spaces. I won't park on them anyway, and most people don't, because you only get an hour parking on the disabled place. But if I move the car 6 inches, I get 2 hours. That's how stupid. I told the minister about it. They looked at it. They thought that was a stupid idea, whoever's put this up. That was 18 months ago. Still nothing's done about it.
And what was the reason for only making disabled bays just 1 hour?
I've no idea. It's a stupid idea. If a man's got a wheelchair or something, it takes him 10, 15 minutes to get out of the car and get ready to go anywhere. It's a stupid idea. And as I said, if I park normally on the street where anybody can park, I get 2 hours. And then I'm taking up the space of a normal person because he's not allowed to park on the disabled spot. So you understand it? It's a silly situation. But also something happened to me that I've not told you before. When Conrad's were in business, I was coming out of the cafe with my trolley that I have to walk with. And just right next to the curb was a hole, I would say about 9-10 inches across on the road. And my trolley, I didn't see it, the wheel went in it and turned sideways. I went right over the top of my trolley. I crashed in the middle of the road, banged my face on the floor. If my friends hadn't been with me, I don't know what I would have done because I couldn't get up. If a car had been coming, I'd have been killed. I told the council about it. The commissioner, not the council, I took photographs of it and showed them. That was 2 years ago, and they still haven't filled the hole up.
The hole's still there?
It's still there in the same place, and nobody's done anything about it. I've told you, as far as disability is concerned, the government is not interested in you.
All right,
Frank. I get no help from anybody.
All right, Frank, we've got to go because we're losing time, but we'll speak again shortly. Okay. Thanks, Frank.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Good to hear from you. And David's with us now. Hi, David.
Hi, Randy. Just the power of radio, Manx Radio, or it could be a coincidence. We were shopping on Sunday, came across the prom around about 11 o'clock, and there we have a contractor actually cutting the grass on the edge where the strip is. Now, I wonder whether, A, was it the power of the radio, or B, because the Americans were coming the weekend?
It depends. You see, some people like the wild stuff and other people don't. I guess it's different now. Years ago, you would never have had an unkempt flower bed, and you wouldn't, the grass would always have been cut. All the sunken gardens would have been perfect.
Yeah,
some of them look like Tarzan should be in them at the moment.
Well, yeah, and the trouble is, the problem is, I'm not getting at all the dog owners, but people do let them go in these wild areas and they do their business. It never gets picked up. And then, because I know a couple of contractors have always said to me that they wouldn't price for cutting in between wildlife meadows because the amount of fishies that's actually there. And it's a terrible job to do, as you can imagine, if you're trying to stream. But I just wonder, the other question I had too is, I wonder whether Tours Isle of Man got a chance to contract out for the transporting the people around instead of the bus company. I still think there's an anti-competitive practice going on there, and hopefully the Chief Minister would look at it, now he's in the DOI, to say, is it an unfair practice? He's using taxpayers' buses, taxpayers' fuel, taxpayers' insurance and garaging and all that to compete against the company and have no shares in Tours Isle of Man or any other company, right?
All right, thanks, David.
See you, boy.
Good to hear from you, thank you. I've just found out yesterday that Hertford Homes, this is a 404 text, the Hertford Homes planning application for Braddan was approved subject to a few legal issues. The news media was quiet about this despite numerous objections from residents. This may go ahead. Hopefully there'll be an appeal. Well, if you go to manxradio.com and go into the search engine, you can find numerous reports about the 350 homes that could be built in Braddan. In fact, there's a report going back to 2021 when it was first mooted, reports from 2022, and the most recent one was on June the 10th of this year. Braddan commissioners oppose planning application for 320 houses. So there was actually by Emma Draper, our local democracy reporter, who reported that Braddan commissioners were objecting into the planning application, which would see 320 homes built on fields next to Braddan School. Currently, the application features houses, 80 of which would be affordable, a primary school and a nursery as well. So it's there. It's at manxradio.com, and you can find out all about it. Your callers are correct. Heritage tourism is very big. It's just a pity the rail link from Peel to Knockalo isn't in situ. And thanks to Lord Elsa for the remaining line, says John. We were talking on Friday about Knockalo being really big for heritage tourism and certainly ancestry tourism. And you can bet your bottom dollar that a fair proportion of those 2,000 Americans that are on the ship that's in Douglas Harbour at the moment will be certainly looking into C's, K's and Q's. And that's one thing. It's a very kind of silently very effective piece of tourism that we have on the Isle of Man, that the Manx National Heritage and the Library have got a whole bank of ancestry data whereby people can access and look and find out where their ancestors came from. It brings hundreds, possibly thousands of people back to the Isle of Man every year just to see where their ancestors came from. And because most of our records have survived, we weren't obviously bombed in either of the wars, so our records are fairly well intact, then that's one of our assets, one of the assets that Manx National Heritage has. Looking forward to this week, by the way, this Thursday, the 17th, not only is it Net Zero Mark II with John Curtis and Andrew Lang-Newton, but also you got somebody at school studying A-levels. Oh dear. Thursday's the big day. A-level, B-Tech Level 3 and other Level 3 qualifications. Big result day this Thursday. And a week on Thursday, it's IGCSE, GCSE and other Level 1 and 2 qualifications. Thursday, the 24th of August. The news team are going to be looking into that to see exactly how that's going to be affecting people going to university or using higher and further education on the Isle of Man. Quickies on after 1 to 3 with Chris Q. Thanks to Howie Kane on the phones today. Mannin Line returns tomorrow at high noon with another open line.
WINT